The Bear, FX, Season 1, Episode 2, Breakdown. We're opening up with the flashback, or maybe a dream, of Carmy at 11 Masson Park, where he's at the pass putting finishing touches on plates where my cat. It's a beautiful setup. It's a year before the events of The Bear. It's showing all the precision, the delicate nature of all the plates that are being plated at 11 Masson Park, which at the time was considered to be the best restaurant in the country, possibly the world. A young chef walks up and keeps on showing him a sauce, and he says it's broken. At this point, you can see that he is relatively calm. He's not screaming. He's not berating this poor young cook who has messed up a sauce because it got too hot and it broke. The tension mounts at this point. The young chef has come up 2 separate times to show the sauce, and it's broken each time. You can see in her face that there's so much stress and worry. She's worried that she's going to be possibly kicked off the line or even fired because of a simple broken sauce. Because at this level of restaurant, you could be kicked off a line for a basic mistake. And in walks the executive chef, who has a much different demeanor. He has an angry look on his face. You can always tell the executive chef because he's a perfectly clean coat, because he hasn't spent any time in the kitchen that day. The executive chef walks up to this poor young girl and asks her why. And the shot of this, the way they shoot it was perfect. It's from his angle, it's always shot down looking at her. It shows that he's in charge. It gives him more power. He is dominant because he's up higher, and every time it shows her looking at him, it's shot from below looking up at him. He's the worst kind of chef because he doesn't want you to grow that much. He's not going to help you all that much. He's going to push you to your breaking point and see if you can come out the other side. So all he does is go, why, until she finally says it's my fault, and he kicks her off the line. And he probably kicked her off the line and sent her home for the day for a simple broken sauce. The executive chef walks up to Carmy at this point, and this gave me and many people I know some PTSD. Made me relive some moments with at least a few chefs that I worked under. He comes up, and when you hear about like the toxic chef or the harassment go through in a kitchen of this caliber, this is showing 100% what it's like. Some people said it was way too over the top, too dramatic, but everything the chef whispers in Carmy's ear is 100% true. I've lived that. I've had that point where a chef has come up and told me that I should just kill myself, that I don't deserve to be in her kitchen. I don't deserve to work under her. I'm not good enough to work for her. Yeah, I've lived that. And those chefs exist, sadly. And they are the worst part of our industry, one of the worst parts of our industry. Carmy, like I did at the time, kept his head down and just said, yes, chef. Because that's all you're allowed to say. Yes, chef. Yes, chef, I'm strong. Yes, chef, I'm a badass. And you just keep on repeating it. They make you repeat it so that you know you have no power and that you are nothing compared to them. This kind of chef will try and beat it into you and try and take away your free will, take away the person that you are, and try and create something new. It's not a good thing. It's never a good thing. Sometimes you come out the other end stronger. More often than not, you end up being just like that person. And hopefully you can break the cycle at some point. I feel like I did. Meanwhile, the entire time that this piece of shit chef is just in Carmy's ear, he hasn't stopped plating. Carmy is plating the entire time. He hasn't taken his eyes off the plates he's working on. He hasn't moved from his goal. So he's being yelled at, he's being berated, he's being told that he should kill himself, that he's worthless, but he hasn't stopped plating because you put up with this kind of abuse and you just continue to plate. You continue to do your job because the job comes first, you come dead last. After this flashback, we are back in The Beef. Carmy's screaming for hands as he wraps up a sandwich. And of course, everyone is still kind of making fun of him for the lingo he's using. Hands, 86, corner, behind, all these things. The camera pans over the entire kitchen that is just a fucking mess. Everything is disgusting. And you can constantly hear Richie talking shit in the background about his sandwich and how it should be taken to Goodwill and given away because it's not that good. Even though in the last episode, he was going on and on about how great it was in a moment of him tasting it alone. We're at the end of their service, so now they're moving into the cleaning aspect. You have Marcus cleaning a stove with a toothbrush, which is definitely not common. Almost no one does that. But it's for consistency. Sydney says, "Chef, would you like me to drain the oil?" Of course, Carmen's reaction is, "No, I got it." Because he's at the point now where he doesn't believe that anyone else can do the job as well as him. So instead of delegating properly, he's just doing it all himself, which is not a healthy way to do it. You need to learn how to delegate in a kitchen like this. As they're cleaning, Carmy says, consistency brings you to a higher level. And then he says, at the French Laundry, and Richie immediately starts attacking it, like, oh, French Laundry is a stupid fucking name anyway. And then Carmy mentions Noma, which is one of the best restaurants in the world. And again, like, fuck your French Laundry, fuck your Noma. Richie and the crew doesn't look at any of these restaurants as meaning anything to them. Marcus says, and Noma's the shit, isn't it? In sync, you have Carmy and Sydney both go, it's the best. Because it's one of those restaurants where it will push you to be your best. We're trying to get more details about how Richie feels about Carmy, which is, there's definitely an inferiority complex. Even though he's boisterous and acts like he is better than everyone, he's not, and he doesn't have his shit together in any way, shape, or form. But it's the fact that Carmy left to go train at other restaurants and around the world, get a different world's view. Richie looks down on that, which is a very common factor in our industry, where you have people who have been in their hometowns their whole lives, and you have someone who's gone out and trained under good chefs or good restaurants, or just traveled around the world and eaten street food. They look down on you for leaving the hometown. Sydney says, I would legit do anything to go work at Noma. And Richie's response is, to what, to go eat bugs? And she goes, no, to be inspired. That's one thing about places like Noma. It's not just Noma. Noma's always thrown around a lot, but there's a lot of restaurants in the world. And it could be a place down the street where you go and work under a chef who just loves food and loves the culture. That can inspire you to be better. Can inspire something in a young chef or anyone to want more, to think outside the box, to create something new for themselves. We're reaching the point where it's the full end of service, the end of the night for everyone. Richie and Carmy are out back, lighting their first cigarette of the evening after the shift. The music is somber, and like a good chef who doesn't know when to say no and doesn't know how to delegate and is a glutton for punishment, he's cleaning the kitchen beyond the point of what it was cleaned earlier. The entire staff cleaned the kitchen, but he's sitting there and having to clean it more because it's not clean enough for his standards. He wants better. And now for the end of Carmy's evening, he's walking home alone. It's the slow, somber music playing still. And then the high caloric intake of food at the end of a shift, which is the most standard chef meal of Doritos, peanut butter and jelly, and a Coke. Now that's not standard for everyone, but you tend to not eat for 10 or 12 hours. You get home at midnight, 1 a.m., sometimes 2 a.m., and you go for the simplest and quickest thing you can eat. For him, PB&J, a Coke, and some Doritos. Nacho flavor. This next scene is very triggering. He's eating his meal. Now he's smoking a cigarette on the couch. I don't smoke personally. But laying down on the couch, to Food Network or Food Show or Chef's Table or something, and falling asleep to the sound of more food after you just spent 10 or 12 hours cooking and serving, and you're trying to ingest more food into your life via TV, Netflix, YouTube, whatever. And he passes out and then goes into nightmare mode, where he is standing at the stove at the beef and just screaming out tickets. I think every chef I know has had the ticket machine nightmare, where you have constant tickets just coming out and you can't keep up, and that's where he's at right now. There's so much anxiety and so much pain coming from the beef that he's literally dreaming and having nightmares about being online, not being able to keep up, and having to fire ticket after ticket after ticket. As the nightmare continues, it turns out that Carmy was sleepwalking and sleep cooking. Literally frozen food inside of boxes on the stove that are on fire. But he's so stuck in his nightmare, he doesn't even know what he's doing. I've never done that, and it's a little dramatic. I don't think anyone's ever done, maybe one or two people have done that, but I've never done it. I have, on the other hand, gone home, poured a glass of something, drank said substance, sat down while something was in the stove, and fall asleep, and wake up to a house full of smoke and fire alarms going off. Yeah, it's a little traumatic. Now fast forward, we are back at the beef. The morning of, coffee pots are going on. You can see beef being seared. They're getting ready for the day. And in walks Sydney to talk about her position. She has been a paid stage, which is not common, but it does happen at some decent restaurants where they will pay for a stage, where you're not technically an employee, but you are being paid for your time within the restaurant. And she comes in with, I want to do more, I want more. Going back to what she said in the first episode of like, why are you here? You're pretty much the best, one of the best chef cuisines in the world. Why are you working here? And it's making sandwiches, and she still wants to work for him because she wants to be inspired. She wants to work with a great chef, which is something that a lot of young chefs want to do. And so she has extra credit. The extra credit is she went above and beyond. She's showing how much she loves what she does. She's showing how much passion she has for the beef after being there for a week. She points out that being open all day long is a mistake, which is almost always the case. Being open 24 hours a day, or open from 11 to 11, almost never works out unless you're in a space where you can have the morning crowd, the afternoon crowd, and the evening crowd. It's very hard to capture all. And for most places, being closed midday is the best option. You're closed for like 2 hours and do a flip from lunch into dinner. She makes a huge packet to show him, like, look, here are the numbers. And of course, the response is always something about money or time. And she points out the fact that if they change and cut that midsection, they're saving enough on labor to literally afford her to come on, not including other staff members. So in my last episode, I talked about the going above and beyond, how it could be a bad thing for a young chef who's doing too much, because they're not looking at the whole board. They're looking at a singular issue, or maybe 5 issues, and not the 20 issues affecting a restaurant. And she keeps on pushing for the to-go food. For those of you who aren't in the industry, and some of you who are in the industry, doing to-go is not easy. You need to have a full infrastructure built just around that. You can't just get some to-go stuff and just do it. I mean, you can, and you'll do it poorly. You need to have a system in place where you're going to have a pickup location. If people are coming in and placing orders, you need to have a place where they're actually going to place orders. If you don't have any counter service, that makes things difficult. So you have to have a server stop what they're doing, stop focusing on their section, to go talk to someone, or they order from the bar, something around those lines. So you have to have something in place. Plus you have to have small to-go cups, large to-go cups, small to-go containers, large to-go containers, large ramekins, small ramekins, to-go silverware, to-go. Like, you have to have so many things in place just to do to-go food. And most people don't see it that way. They don't look at the fact of how much you need. And she is is pushing too quickly and wants change like that. She wants to go forward. She's like, oh, we could just do this, this, and this, and we're there. Because she's young and inexperienced. So she's not looking at the things that could go wrong. This next scene is beautiful because it shows the difference in characters of how they handle a health inspector. No matter how clean and up to par a restaurant or bar is, one of the most feared moments is when the health inspector walks in, because you don't know how they're going to act. 3 types of chef, owner, person in a restaurant reacting here. Richie is the fuck you, get out, we don't like you, we don't have anything to do with you, don't fuck with us, no funny business, anything like that. They're the person who hates the health inspector. They want to do everything in their power to make their life miserable. You have Carmy, who is more by the book of just, if you need anything, let us know. If you have any questions, let us know. Then you have the third, which is Sydney, which is just shock of, oh my god, the health inspector is here. What do we do? And back to Sydney's packet when it comes to COGS, cost of goods. She's still pressing what she was talking about earlier. Instead of just handing it off and being like, here, chef, please read this. I put a lot of work into it. I would love your thoughts on it. Instead, she wants an answer now. She needs instant gratification, which is an issue with every young chef. Every young chef wants to know now. Give me an answer now. And you can hear in Carmy's voice getting more and more annoyed of like, can we... He's not saying it, but he's like, can we fucking talk about this later? We have a health inspector, and we have a lunch opening any minute now. Another beautiful quick cut between different scenes happening all at the same time. You have staff out back talking shit about Sydney, being like, you can't trust her. And there will always be those staff members who will look at a newcomer, a sous chef, especially if it's management. New management comes in, half the staff isn't going to trust the person whatsoever. Pan back in, there's a quick cut, goes to 3 more staff members sitting down, and Maddie Madsen, who is plays an amazing character in this show, who's an amazing chef in real life. He's going like, he's like, don't trust the health inspector, they're not your friend. Don't let her smile at you. And that's one mentality of how to look at health inspectors. Then another quick cut, and we go to Carmy talking with Sydney, and he finally has to vocalize like, Sydney, stop. Everything you're saying is probably correct, but it's a lot, and I just need to move forward at this exact moment to get through this day so that we can get through another day. This moment could be the best or worst moment of your week or month. Health inspector stops to talk about what she has found. And at this point, it's not great for them because they're awarded a C. When you see a C in a window, you usually don't want to go eat at this place because of the number of contaminants and violations a restaurant has to get a C. It can be pretty bad. But the big thing is she finds a hole in the wall, not properly fixed, but then she finds a pack of cigarettes on a stove. Very dangerous. One, you have basically an accelerant sitting next to open flame, and with the hood fan could be sucked up and could literally cause a grease fire within the hood or anywhere in the kitchen. And the second reason it's bad is because it's a contaminant. So they're awarded a C, and of course, a fight breaks out between Carmy and Richie. A C can be the death of a restaurant. Now we're trying to get to the quick fix where Carmy sends Richie and Sydney out to the hardware store to get this stuff to fix the wall. And Richie shows exactly what kind of person he is, where he starts looking around the store and saying, like, we could just ask someone. He goes, no, I can fucking find it myself. He's so set on trying to prove his worth that he's incapable of just stopping and being like, I don't know what I'm doing, I need help. Sydney's slowly trying to connect with Richie in some way, which he's not making it easy. And she finally asks kind of a hard question, which is, what happened to Mikey, the original owner of the beef, Carmy's brother? And this is the first point where we understand that he's not just gone, but he killed himself. He shot himself in the head. And she doesn't know how to react, so she just asks, how are you related? Mikey was his best friend. And he doesn't really know how to connect with that emotion at the moment. So she drops the subject because he goes back to trying to find cock. Quick cut from hardware store back to the restaurant. Carmy's putting his C grade in the window, and up walks Uncle Jimmy. There's a pause, and it shows him talking in the window, and Carmy is just unloading on him about how they're behind on bills, how they can't make payroll, all the things going wrong in the restaurant. And Uncle Jimmy's just like, I just asked, where the fuck have you been? Now, of course, Carmy motions here, the restaurant. And he finds out that his brother Mikey took over $300,000 in loans from Uncle Jimmy, cash infusions, to make sure the business kept rolling. Uncle Jimmy offers to buy the restaurant, what he's wanted to do for a while. It's probably a good location for something else. Carmy even says, you just said restaurants are bad business. Uncle Jimmy's response is perfect. Didn't say you have to keep it a restaurant. But Carmy is so set on making his family's business function again that he won't give up. Which he probably should, but he won't give up. Because he has to make it work for himself and his brother. Back to the hardware store where they're now getting in the car, Richie and Sydney, where he says, I don't even know why you want to work for that little fucking turd. And Sydney quickly responds, because he's good. Not just good, he's one of the best. He won Best New Chef at 21, which that's a feat. That's hard to do. Not many have done that. And whether Richie likes it or not, they can learn a lot from Carmy, because he has so many years of experience working in really good, high-functioning restaurants. Richie doesn't appreciate that. Again, it goes back to the inferiority complex of him thinking, you left the hometown, therefore you think you're better than me, but you're not better than me. And not looking at the bigger picture of the fact that you have someone who went and trained somewhere else who could possibly bring something positive to your business. As Richie and Sydney are arguing, Richie's phone keeps going off. It's his ex-wife, and she's calling about their daughter. This is where you start to get insight into Richie as a person, like who he is outside of what we've seen outside the restaurant. The fact that he is a father, and he has a young girl. Richie's ex, who does not like Richie, is telling her some pretty awful things, and he has to try and compete with that. And you can see from his mannerisms, for the way he's speaking about it, that it's eating him up, that he can't be a better father, the father he thinks he should be for his daughter. Hardware scene comes to an end where you finally see that Richie actually is a good father in some ways, loves his daughter immensely, and wants to be the best for her that he can. Again, another quick cut. I love the way this is cut. Quick cut back to Carmy, and he's looking at Sydney's 40 pages of notes and ideas she had for to-goes, for labor, for everything. And you can see him smirk as he's reading through it, because he knows she's right and knows that she's touching on points that he's already thought of, but seeing it from a different perspective can help so much. Carmy is desperate for a connection at this point, especially a family connection after losing his brother. So he calls his sister's husband and apologizes for what all we can deduce is that he may or may not have assaulted Pete in some way. The phone gets passed to Sugar, where she's talking about therapy, group therapy for people who have lost loved ones to suicide. And like a true chef, Carmy just says, I'm fine. I don't need anything. I'm good. Meow. But he asks Sugar what she's making for dinner, and she says, Mom's chicken. Immediately he stops. Mom grabs a pen and has to write down. It's a delicious dish of pan-seared chicken, some capers, some white wine, some lemon. It's a delicious dish. More restaurants should bring it back, done properly. As he's writing down the idea for lemon chicken piccata, he's slowly opening up to Sugar about like his severe trauma and PTSD of throwing up before shifts and waking up in the middle of the night with nightmares, screaming, sleep cooking, like literally getting up and sleepwalking and cooking something, being stuck in that mode. It's terrible. I've been there. It's where you're so stressed out. There's so much pain, and you can see how concerned Sugar is. so worried about her brother. Biggest thing we do is we take care of other people. We take care of our staff the best we can. Well, some of us do. We look after them like they're our children, our family. We take care of the guests, make sure that they're fed and happy and want to come back to our home, which is the restaurant. But we can't do it if we don't take care of ourselves, and most of us don't take care of ourselves. Some of us start taking care of ourselves when it's a little too late. And Carmy's slowly starting to realize that. He's still very hesitant, very standoffish about therapy or just slowing down. Now Richie's in the middle of trying to fix the wall. That may or may not be his fault. And he looks down and sees a letter to Carmy from Mikey. He goes to put it on a desk but realizes that he needs to leave it where it's at. Carmy needs to find it. At least that's where my mind goes. We jump to the kitchen in the middle of service where Sydney is on the line, and now Ibrahim is now starting to use the lingo. Sydney's calling out tickets to more to Dell. She's calling out the tickets and Ibrahim is responding with, yes, chef. Or to more Dell, chef. Calling back tickets, which is so important in a restaurant like this. You don't have a system set up. You're literally getting old school tickets printing out where you have one station getting them, calling them out to everyone, and you have to call back your tickets to make sure that you know what's coming in, and also the repetition helps you remember. And then the chef knows that you heard correctly what they're calling out. And then Sydney asks if there wants to be a line change. The line change would be she steps off to cook, and Carmy, who is the executive chef owner, steps on and starts doing expo. He declines, says, it's your line, chef. So she stays in her place and continues calling out tickets. And it's a beautiful moment where Carmy says thank you for taking Richie to the hardware store. And of course she's like, no problem, you know. And Sydney asks, should she come in tomorrow? And Carmy goes, yes, please. She's hesitant, like, really? And Carmy says, yeah, you're hired. And you can see that little bit of joy in her face. She smiles and realizes that she's been hired at the place she wants to work, which is a huge thing. As Carmy walks away, he goes, no, thank you. It's your pass, chef. Basically giving her permission to run the line. It's someone you look up to. It's a hero telling you that it's your line to run. It's a big moment for a chef her age. She's young, so having someone above her tell her that it's her line, it's her pass to run, is a huge moment. If you take it humbly and think, he sees who I am, she sees who I am, they see who I am as a chef. They see my contribution. After handing off the pass to Sydney, Carmy walks outside to run to Richie and asks him if he fixed the hole. He goes, yeah. Are we good in there? And he goes, yeah, no problem, I'm going to burn one. He hasn't had a cigarette all day. Most chefs smoke, and most chefs smoke like goddamn chimneys. It's a stress reliever. And he reaches for his pack of cigarettes. His brain goes back and he just rewinds time and realizes that the pack of cigarettes that were found by the health inspector were actually his. Stress in a kitchen, stress in real life, do some amazing things to the body. One of them is they can make you forgetful. Being stressed out can really fuck with your memory. You will forget small things, you will forget people's names, you'll forget where you put your keys, things like that, which adds to the stress. Carmy's at a point where he's so stressed out that he's forgetting little things like taking out a pack of cigarettes and leaving them on top of the stove. At the exact moment he realizes that he's the one who left the cigarettes, who basically got them to see, he gets the text from his sister about the group therapy session. So he's in a vulnerable moment that might allow him to go to see a therapist or group therapy to open up about his brother's death. But you can see the pain in Carmy's eyes from the incredibly long day, and also realizing he was the one who fucked up. And as Carmy realizes that he's the fuck up in the situation, it just pans out. End of episode. If you've made it this far and you like the content, hit the like button and subscribe.